It's fine. So now you have been listening to a lecture about literature and the reasons for reading literature. And I heard also toward the end of the lecture that you were speaking about translation and all these different cultural things that we need to think about when we translate. And I suppose that some of you will also work with translation in the future. At least I hope for that, since I saw in your answers on Google Club that you are so well versed in many languages, important for India. So I would just like to say some words about my own experiences of translation. So since I have French language more than English, so I translated one work by a surrealist author, Alfred Jarry. And this work was written in French towards the end of the 19th century. And the text is surrealist. And that means that it's somehow between poetry and prose. There are a lot of images, and they are not always completely straightforward. So in this work, there were so many images that I could not fit them into the Swedish language, because the sentences in French, they are sort of allowed, they are allowed to be charged with many images and metaphors and so on. But in Swedish, that doesn't simply work. So I had to find a solution. And this is a little bit what you were speaking about before, that you have to make choices and you have to use your judgment and think thoroughly and use your cultural wisdom and knowledge to make these choices. And it was so difficult because I had to cut so many things in this novel in order to transmit it into Swedish. So I have been translating a little bit of surrealist poets and novelists from French to Swedish, and I really enjoy it. So we should do that. This is also one activity that you do as a cultural mediator that we were speaking about. But this afternoon, I will approach a subject that is quite far from literature itself. But it's not far from language. It has very much to do with translation and language. And it is about generative AI and the fact that it's omnipresent now in our everyday life. And you, as educators and teachers, you must engage with this. You must take a stand. You must try to find an attitude, a relationship to what is happening. And you also need to integrate this somehow in your teaching. So the title of my lecture is Who Holds the Future? Exploring AI, technology, and sustainability across school subjects, L1 education, social sciences, and technology. And why is that? This is transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary. In our research group, we see that it's not possible anymore to keep the borders, the disciplinary borders in school when we have generative AI. We need to collaborate across subject borders in order to harness what is happening around us. This is why, but I will explain further. So this lecture is very much based on the research that I am doing right now with my colleagues. So this is front research in the classroom with generative AI. But we will really start from the beginning. And as all the other days, you have a workshop board to go to. And today we have a in 2004. And the idea is that perhaps we need 1 or 2 minutes break here and there so that you can go in there, answer some questions related to this lecture. And this lecture is also a preparation for what we are going to do together tomorrow. Because tomorrow I have designed a new workshop for you and with you. And we will only work with students, but not in any way. It will be a roadmap to it. But that's for tomorrow. So this is only to prepare you. But let us start with AI. Often we speak now about AI as if it was something self-evident, just out there. But what is it really? Well, AI, that artificial intelligence, this is not one thing. Artificial intelligence is systems that can mimic certain processes and behaviors that we associate with intelligence, such as learning, thinking, and problem solving. And what is learning in this context? The ability to learn from one's own and others' past experiences. And you know that you can do that. But now we also have a technology that can learn from its own and others' experiences, no matter if it's a human or a machine. And this system, they can also apply knowledge in various and new situations in different and new ways. So it would be strange if we didn't make use of these possibilities, right? But then, what can we expect from artificial intelligence? What can artificial intelligence do for us? Well, it can assist in assessments and decision-making. It can act independently in complex environments. You know, the self-driving cars. It can also interact naturally with humans and other machines, the chatbots, and create new things, images, text, music, videos, and code. This is ChatGPT and other technologies of this kind. So what we are interested in when we are looking at artificial intelligence right now in educational settings or pedagogical issues, we are here. So generate new things and interact naturally with humans and other machines. That is what we are interested in. An AI technology is often data-driven. So we cannot speak about artificial intelligence if we don't speak about data. So the data is used to build models that encode the knowledge the machine displays. And we need a large amount of data and also these iterative models testing all the time to train and also in order to perform tasks. So here you have an illustration of that. So this is just to show you a little bit where we are with artificial intelligence, what can we speak about. And now in our research group, we have a specific focus, and that is the practices with and about AI. So we speak about socio-technical practices, and we ask the overall question, how is AI technology integrated into teaching and learning? So here, it's a quote from our latest book from 2024. Rather than asking what digital technologies do, we instead ask, how do people use these technologies in their daily learning activities? And how do they shape and are shaped by technological tools? And how do new practices emerge and evolve in response to technological change? And how does technological innovation respond to new practices? So there are different perspectives on this, right? So we try to move away from this opposite relationship between the machine and the human. And instead, we try to explore practices and processes in development within a socio-material arrangement. So there is now no opposition between the machine and the human. There is an assemblage. And that assemblage is what is important. And they include these AI technologies, of course. So that's the focus. And we have, concerning specifically L1 education, language 1 education, we have some hypotheses that we have formulated. And we can see that technology and AI development challenge educational structures and practices. And the role of L1 and other subjects too in implementing educational use of digital media and tools is evident, but not necessarily recognized for the subject. So we must ask ourselves, should it be like that? But we can see from the research literature, from reality, that this is it. And how do we move from these hypotheses? And thirdly, technology and AI in instructional learning through issues of sustainability. So we have different dimensions of sustainability. We have the ethical dimensions. How is it ethically sustainable to bring in generative AI tools with students, among teachers in their work, and so on? And we also have the social dimension. What happens with the relations in the classroom when we bring in these kind of technologies? And three, when we speak about digitalization and specifically AI technology, we rarely address the climate issues. This takes so much of our resources, and perhaps we should put them somewhere else. But it's difficult to break with this. We are in a flow. We need to follow along. So that's it. So now you have been speaking about literature and the reasons for literature in education before me. And yesterday we were addressing literacy in our discussions. I heard you. And this is a skill area in transformation. So just to give you some points regarding yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So what is literacy yesterday and today? We have gone from forming letters, decoding, and understanding to navigate within and between texts in different formats in media. So reading and writing are connected to technological development, obviously. And this affects content, format, reading, and writing practices. But then, what is literacy tomorrow? So imagining the literacy needs of tomorrow is very important to do, because that helps us shape today's teaching in reading and writing. But who is included in that imagination, that work of imagination? Policymakers, big tech actors, for example. But where are the teachers in these endeavors? And in relation to this, we also need to ask ourselves, how is it today and tomorrow? How does a person become literate tomorrow? Well, we know that becoming literate depends on your interests, your talent, your home environment, the school you go to, and also, of course, leisure and other activities. And in this, I would like to emphasize the teacher's role in shaping what reading and writing could be, and also what is legitimate within the classroom, and valued, of course. So reflecting on literacy is important when we bring in generative AI in education. And reading and writing, as we have also touched a little bit upon, have always been technology supported. I mean, paper is one form of technology, of course. And in history, we have the printed culture. And the school structure and the school organization, these are built on the printed culture. And in that environment, the teacher had the complete control over what knowledge was communicated and how knowledge was acquired. So that's it. But then when we move forward to the present, reading and writing are activities that are interwoven between the analog and the digital. And these things are not separated. So learning to read and write in school reflects a tension between dominant, opposing narratives about what children and young people need. And this is particularly true in Sweden right now, where we have, I would almost say, a war in the media of what we should do in school. Should we ban all technology, all digital technology, and go back to book and to the printed culture? Or should we move with the new influences from generative media and technology and stay there? That is the question. I have a quote here from one very prominent educational researcher from Sweden, Roger Selja, that I'm working with. And he wrote quite recently in 2024 that our cognitive abilities and skills are becoming increasingly hybrid as we learn to interact with ever more powerful symbolic technologies that not only enhance our thinking, but also reorganize it. So being in this transformation and understanding that our ways of knowing are changing, but also the knowledge that we need to have is also changing. So we need to be in that. And then when we go to the future, well, as I have seen so far here in India and from my visits, I've also seen in primary school and middle school that technology is often missing. So there is not so much technology. So this is very different from schools in Sweden, where we have a lot of technology. And when we look at how school is developing, for example, in the US right now, it's very much steered by huge companies like Google and Microsoft. So do we want Googleized and Microsofted schools? We have schools today in the US where the students can go and speak to an AI bot only for 2 hours. What do we gain and what do we miss in such an educational environment? And is this something that we strive for? Is this efficiency in learning? So these questions we need to ask. And I don't know for you, but in Sweden, all schools, they have a digital platform. And what do we mean by a digital platform? Well, that is where all the teachers, they have their pages with their disciplines, with the tasks that the students must perform, with the exams, scheduling, materials, and so on. And they even communicate with parents through that platform and many other things. But what we see is also a threat to the classroom with these platforms, because we can see that these platforms also dictate what is possible to do in learning. So they intervene in how the teachers design their education. And we must ask ourselves, should it be like that? Is it okay? And what is problematic? In recent studies, we can see that the teachers in Sweden, they put an unproportional amount of time in working with these platforms, while they should be with the students and pupils instead. So it is problematic. And then again, towards the future, what do we see? We have agentic and physical AI coming. So I'm working with a professor in computer science at my university. And recently he was in San Francisco visiting the biggest AI company in the world, NVIDIA, and they had their future image of what is going to happen. So at the bottom of a diagram, they saw generative AI. So this is only the beginning. And then exponentially, AI will grow, and very soon we will have agentic AI. So what is that? That is AI agents that we are going to boss around with. So that is what we see before us. We have a lot of AI agents, and we will tell them what to do in many different areas. And then finally, we will reach towards physical AI. And physical AI, these are robots, of course. And it's quite interesting. What I've seen in recent studies with what is happening with artificial intelligence now is also that spiritual leaders are engaging with these discussions, not only from the Christian part, but also Muslim cultures. Because this is sort of triggering and challenging something that has to do with being a human being. And finally, for the future, and we were approaching this the other day, we spoke about hybrid reading and writing formats. And I was talking about the audiobook. The audiobooks have developed in the Swedish society very, very fast. I don't know how many of you are using Spotify in this room. Yes, some of you know about Spotify. So this application is a Swedish startup from the beginning, and it was extremely important in order to develop the audiobook market and the audiobook technology. So this is also why we see a boom, an extreme growth of audiobooks and audio listening in Sweden. And here we can see that this tool allows for book reading to become more and more multimodal, using both text, images, and sound. So what we see in this context is that the book is changing. It's not that we will abandon the book. We will never do that. Literature and books, these are so important things culturally for us, but also for reading. But we have entered an era of bookishness where people come to literature in new ways. Oh, please, it's so tiring for me when you're speaking or talking to each other. It's already a difficult environment for me to be in. It's not like this as I am in my book. So please be respectful. I will do this. I was supposed to have my lecture in the afternoon, and now I have it tonight. So please. Okay. So here we have, I'm now referring to Jessica Pressman, who wrote this book in 2020 about the era of bookishness. And what we can see on internet, for example, these communities where you speak about Jane Austen, you do TikTok films about Jane Austen, you reinterpret classic literature in new ways. And this is quite interesting to see. And I hope that you follow that as teachers. And this also refers back to what we were speaking about yesterday. One question: do you know how and when and what your students read? Because they can read in this way. And here I have a picture of printed books with papers. But what is happening now is also that we have a fund of electronic literature coming up. And this electronic literature can be both digital and printed, but some of this literature is also digitally born. So I encourage you to go to this book by Scott Prepper, where you can see we gave so many examples of the different genres of digital literature coming up. So it's a very useful book. And I have myself also written a paper on the post-digital aesthetics and literature about what is happening now. So now I just want to show you what we are doing right now in order to meet the demands that generative AI faces with in our region at our university. So we are working with a lot of different collaborations regarding AI at our university in order to understand how are we going to meet what is happening. So first of all, we have a collaboration with one upper secondary school in the region. That is important because at that school we have the first senior teacher in AI. So he's a technology teacher, but he is also educated in artificial intelligence. And we also have at this school a general interest about AI. We have also a principal who wants to encourage different ways of integrating AI into the teaching. So we also have at the municipality level people who are working with bridging academia and the schools in the region. We have one person teaching teachers in the schools how to prompt in different subjects and how to use prompts wisely and effectively. And at our university, we have a pedagogical center where people try to educate the staff around us. And we also have a science park with companies working with our university, where we also can develop a certain AI readiness across society and academia. And lastly, I am involved now in creating this Jönköping University Artificial Intelligence Network for opportunities and challenges across disciplines. And on this platform, we will collaborate across sectors. So this is all about applied AI. How do we apply AI in education, in the healthcare sector, and so on. At my faculty, the School of Education and Communication, we have one master's program, Learning, Digitalization and Sustainability. And within that master's program, I monitor a course on AI literacy in educational settings. So this is brand new, but it has been extremely popular, so we cannot take in everyone, but it's online, so you are free to take it. We also have 2 research schools that I'm involved in with the theme of digitalization and learning. So here we're working with artificial intelligence too. And then recently with 6 countries, I have founded an early center for excellence, for excellent research on AI in learning and instruction. So we will meet in May when I come back. We will meet with the 6 countries in Gothenburg, and we will discuss different themes in education, because this concerns both learning in higher education, learning in upper secondary school and down to primary school, but also learning at the workplace. Because we don't have the workforce today that can actually engage with AI practices in productive and also responsible ways. So these are things that we work on. But now I will take you on a journey towards a study that we are working on, towards a specific practice field with AI in one particular upper secondary school, where we have worked with 4 technology program, 4 classes in the technology program. And this collaboration with this school started in 2022, actually, because then I was granted a research project on ethics and values in data-driven educational practices. And we had 3 symposia in different countries with international scholars. And one of these symposia was carried out at my university. So then I invited people from the education sector, teachers, among others. And in this symposium, we were talking about futures-oriented methods and futures perspectives. Because what we saw, when we are now in an era where data is all over, where the AI technology is growing so fast, we need to think about the future, and we need to know how to have agency to actually be involved and engage in the future and have the power to shape it. So one teacher in that symposium got really interested. And if you remember, in November 2022, there was this launch of ChatGPT. It happened like that. And then everything was changed. So the teacher at that point in time, she created workshops at her school with the teachers, development workshops. What shall we do? So here are some comments from the teachers themselves. What did they say? AI is a game changer. We must teach students much more complex things in the future. When we switched to distance, it went really fast. In a similar way, we need to be prepared by trying to foresee scenarios that can emerge. And the future starts now. Now is back then. And the school will be criticized if it's not up to date. And finally, what does the Swedish School Agency do? Nothing. The Swedish School Agency was completely silent and has been so for a very long time. So the teachers realized that they couldn't just sit there and do nothing, because they have very sharp technology students in their classes. And these students will explore and will do a lot of things. So something had to happen. And also we needed to do something really fast. So the teacher contacted me and asked, couldn't we create something to help the teachers and the students to actually explore and see what we can do with artificial intelligence? So from there, we initiated the Futures Day. And now we have Futures Day every year. In 2003, we had one Futures Day, 2024 and 2025. So what is this Futures Day? Well, the thing is that we decided that 4 technology classes could be invited to our university for one day in order to collaborate with artificial intelligence, to explore what can the students do with this technology, and how can the teachers also learn from this event. And this is, of course, a lot of logistics to receive so many upper secondary school students in a university setting, but we collaborate very well together. And we engage these 4 subjects in Futures Day: technology, Swedish as a second language, and social sciences. So this action led to renewed practices. There were new types of collaborations among teachers. We also made the students collaborate across classes, and so that and also from different disciplines, and they also had to collaborate with AI agents. And this also demanded from us to create technology that is safe and that the student could use on this school platform that we have. But maybe you are very tired, so I encourage you to take 1 minute, go on Wool Club. It was, the Wool Club site, and then you go there and you can answer some questions. So here is the website, Futures Day. So it's all in Swedish, not in English yet, but at least you can have an overview of the organizations that we have. And this is Sweden's largest creative AI writing project at an upper secondary school level today. And during the year, the teachers, they prepare the students for this Futures Day. And then we have the Futures Writing Day. And then we gather the stories that the students have written collaboratively with AI during the day. They are sharpened and reformulated here and there. And then they are published in an anthology. And the students, they also generate images to their stories. So all that is included in Futures Day. And just before coming here, this concept, this new pedagogical concept, was actually awarded a grant from the Chalmers Innovation Office, which is a very big technology university in Stockholm, in Sweden. So this is like a stamp that we have the quality stamp to go further with this and also spread the concept to other schools. So it's really exciting. So now you know a little bit about the concept Futures Day. So now I will also tell you a little bit about how we do research about this. Because it's one thing to take action and create new designs and pedagogical designs. It's another thing to do grounded and sharp research on this area. So the research data that we have gathered in this project, they are of different types. So first of all, we have all the stories that the students have submitted every year since 2023. So here we can also see like an evolution about the futures, imaginaries that the students have. And you can imagine that this year, in 2025, when I go back from India, next Friday, we will have the next Futures Day. I have already been out and spoken to the upper secondary school students. So I see that their futures are very, very dark, extremely dark. So Futures Day is also a way to break with this darkness that we can see coming upon us, to see how can we create alternatives or other solutions than what we see before us. So this is one kind of data, the stories in themselves. And during the day, we also do, we record the screens of the groups, not all groups, because they are quite many, but among 5 groups or so. And we also have audio recordings. And this year, we will also put sensor, we will try to collect sensor data from what the students actually are doing when they are clicking on the computer. And now I will present data that we have analyzed from last year in a chapter that will soon be printed, The Unbearable Lightness of Imagination in a Gen AI Era, Changing Creative Writing Practices in School. So what is important to know when we go into these kind of practices, we need new theoretical models and tools to understand what the students are doing. We cannot really work with the established terminology that exists in educational research. So we have based all this on Barad's rejection of separate entities through the concept of diffraction. I don't know what you know about diffraction, but I will show you on the slide. And this concept of diffraction helps to observe the fluid and relational subjectivities in the making of creating writing processes and practices. Because now it's not only the student and the paper and the pen. We're very far from that. Writing is collaborative somehow, and there is a fluidity going on. And the creative processes, we cannot situate them only with the student. We have the creative process is just as much in the generative AI technology too. So how this is working is really interesting to observe. So here I go in a little bit more into the theoretical lenses that we have used on the data material. So diffraction, it comes from physics. And Barrage, she commits to the post-humanist and post-material thinking. And diffraction refers to the bending of waves when they encounter an obstacle. For example, think of light, when light goes through a window or something else. So on the other side, new patterns will be created. So what is happening when the creative process take root in the student group? They will also work with AI technology, and through the AI technology, the creative process will take new ways. So this is the idea. We also work with the concept of de-identification that is coming from Haraway. She doesn't use the identification as such, but what she means is that we need to go away from dichotomies. So as I said, there is not an opposition between the human and the machine. What she tries to show is that the machine and the human becomes, when they encounter a creative process, when they come together in a creative process. And this is also what Barad means when she speaks about interaction instead of interaction, because interaction is also referred to two opposite poles that interact with each other. And she wants to go away from that. So we try to use this lens to understand what is happening in this assemblage of humans and machines when they are involved in a creative writing process. So now I will move into some of the results from this chapter, and it will be a linear report, but of course it's completely messy when we are there with the students and they are involved in their creative process. So I will present three critical phases. First phase is when the students, when they are setting the scene for their story. And then they try to engage with different temporalities, because it's not easy to think future. And we will look further into that. And we can also see how new relations unfold in that setting of the scene. And then we will move into phase two, which is the process when the students develop the story. And this is so interesting. We have called it differences in the remaking, because we have differences between the present and the futures, okay? But we don't really know what these differences are, right? But what we can see is that it's very difficult for the students to sort of separate themselves from what they have in the present to think something completely new. So it's these differences in the remaking. They try to see and write about what is different from my present in the future, and vice versa. So that is phase two. In phase three, here we can see differences and similarities within differences. So here they have sort of formulated for themselves what the present is and what the future is, so they can see the differences. And suddenly they also observe what the similarities are. So that's the idea with phase 3. So let's move into this. So here they set the scene, and this is a recording from their group collaboration. And here they follow teachers' instruction. They try to co-create an environment in time and space, the characters and the plot. And they are negotiating together how to write prompts, but they mainly use prompts to find names for their characters. And also they try to work with the relations between humans and AI creations, you'll see. So this is an introduction that they write to the story. And they do this without artificial intelligence, because they are not allowed to use the artificial intelligence until the afternoon of future state. So I'll read it for you, this introduction to their story. Hey, and welcome back to TEC73B. I want to start by introducing the school's new AGI robot, Aaron. He's going to be hanging out with us from now on, and can help you guys with pretty much anything. A hand shoots up from the back of the class. Yeah, Alfred, says Lena. Lena is the teacher. But wait, if this Aaron guy is so great and he can help us with anything, why are you still here? I mean, isn't he just going to replace you and the other teachers completely? Alfred asks firmly. The room goes quiet. Lena's not sure what to say as she shifts her gaze from Alfred to Aaron. She adjusts her glasses and scratches her head with a pen. Well, Alfred, that's a good question. I guess we'll see what happens in the future. The rest of the class would be done from home, with the teacher and Aaron as holograms, but that wasn't anything new. So here you can see this is an effort to try to think futures. But now we already have robots in the classrooms. In Sweden, that exists here and there. So this is not anything new. And holograms, well, more or less, we have remote teaching, we have flipped classrooms. So it's not extremely new. But what is interesting in this first scene is that we can see these differences in the remaking. They are really trying to invent or imagine futures, but it's difficult. It's not so different as we might think in their imagination. But we can also see the different relations that are coming up. The teacher-student relation is negotiated. Will the teacher be needed at all? And what kind of relation can we see here between the teacher and the robot? It's quite tense. But we cannot see from this first scene what kind of relation there is between the student and the robot. Perhaps the student, they do not know. Perhaps they didn't want to write it out. But what we can also see when they write this introduction is what Annette Markham, a media communication scholar, calls a discursive closure. When we imagine futures, we are so colored by what we have in the present, and also of discourses about education, of what is possible to think. So imagine freely, and sort of being creative and find alternative ways to think about futures. It's extremely difficult. And we also must remember that even though futures are an inescapable part of education, there is a tendency to view the future as a goal to be achieved. You decide that, okay, after this course, you must have learned this and this and that. And in 2 years, you will have your master's, you will have your PhD, and so on. So the future is very seldom something unknown that can be shaped and influenced, actually, and also be shaped over time and transformed. You have a fixed idea of the futures. So breaking that up is something that we try to do through these speculative methods together with the students. And this, of course, is so extremely important today when we are presented with inevitable imaginaries of what the future should be, with AI technologies, with what we should be able to do and the skills that we need to have in order to be employable in the future. So we ask ourselves, how can we create opportunities to generate visions of possible futures alternatives rather than future washing? Because when we are presented with these inevitable imaginaries or promissory imaginaries, future is washed of all the alternatives that might be found here in this classroom right now. So we need to be there. And the students need to be involved too. We need to listen to them. And this was actually one of the big motivations for Futures Day. The teachers, they wanted to know, what do the students think themselves? But let's move to phase, yes, this is phase number 2, yes. So this is in the group. The students, they collaboratively developed the story with AI rewriting. Here we have changed the terminology slightly because we see with these new reading and writing processes, we also need to reinvent perhaps the terminology. When the students are collaborative writing like this, they are both reading and writing because they read very long text that they let the generative AI generate. And then they also write in their own document. So this is a kind of rewriting process. So in these group activities, they write prompts to generate stories, and they have very long text that they generate. And they read this text and picks up on things that they like, that they would like to include in their own text. And in this particular case, they developed this story so that the two main characters, Olle and Bella, have a common interest in the past before the story takes place. And they also add societal aspect and they try to formulate a happy ending. So I will read this prompt for you, and maybe you can criticize this prompt. Maybe you will say that they don't know how to prompt. Oh, sorry. You and I are going to write a story together. So this is the student writing to the Gen AI. The story is about a guy who's 17 years old, and the year is 2074. His name is Per-Olof, but everyone calls him Olle. Olle has family and friends, but he's worried that the human side of life is disappearing because robots and AI are taking over. He really likes things that are natural and human, and he's heard tons of stories from his grandparents about what life was like 50 or 60 years back. And he wants that kind of life too. He wants to hang out with his friends in real life, not just have a bunch of virtual interactions. The story should be exciting, and I want you to act like a writer who brings in suspense, which is often very important for young people when they read, right? So what is happening here? So here we then see the differences in the remaking. So they are trying to really create something new in the future. So the AI is given the opportunity to create text within the frame of the prompt, which reflects perceptions of Gen AI as a tool for generating text. But they also recognize both possibilities and limitations of what the AI can contribute and the knowledge they need to be able to collaboratively create here. And we can see these interactions going on. And of course, it's very close to the traditional writing process. But on the other hand, we have AI here, who is the one who generates the text from the beginning. So it doesn't come really originally from the student, from the students themselves. But how this co-authorship is made possible is quite interesting. So the co-authorship is sort of establishing, and we can see that there is a kind of meta-authorship that is established, because the students, they are not writing themselves, but they are sort of designing how the writing process is going to evolve. So some other interesting point here: when students experiment with the AI, they need to read critically, rephrase, and combine text segments created by themselves and by the AI. So the creativity is still there, as well as the critical activities, but they are transposed. They are happening at another level, right? So what we see is perhaps a sort of an entangled authorship where the students and the AI, they cannot be separated. They are working together. So we have this kind of computer creativity that Sweeney is talking about in his article from 2023. So Barad, in the post-humanist thinking, she speaks about cutting together a part when and this is something that we can use in this entangled authorship. And what she means by that is that the students, they cut out parts from the generated text, and then they recombine it in a new text. So they cut it together. They cut together different parts, and these texts, they are both apart and together. So this is important. We have this huge assemblage, and there are some things that will become visible in the creative process of all these text generation. But what we want to say with this is that this is far from uncritical, and it's not only copying and pasting. It is a kind of a new reading and writing process that we need to take into account. Oh, sorry. So the third phase now then, students' collaborative writing processes and practices. We come to this diffractive writing. So the diffraction here is this tension between the students and their creative processes, their creative writing, and the generative AI's creative writing. Because the students, they observe the tensions between the two. And they feel that something is not right. And what is it? Because when they read the AI written text, they start to discuss if they would have written it in this way. So it's really critical. So they started to merge the process of human and AI generated text. So we really can see this cutting together and apart, and this diffractive and interactive level of writing practices where we cannot separate humans and machines. So here's an excerpt from their group conversations. But the thing is, this isn't written the way we've been writing it now. No, definitely not. If we just paste some of that in, it's going to clash so bad. Yeah. But I was thinking, if we just rewrite the whole text like we've done it there, the same way, oh, that's going to be super annoying. It's like really complicated words, but yeah, it sounds kind of cool. But does it really though? No, definitely not. I don't know if we should, honestly. So here you can see that they hesitate. Can we use this AI generated text? Because this is also about what is allowed and legitimate within the classroom. We know that we have this idea about using generative AI in the classroom is not a good thing. So they hesitated. And this is quite interesting. So here, further, you can see what they say in their group discussion. There are some words here you're like, yeah, this isn't really, this presence is a paradox in my world, or Dev 05, as he's officially called. I don't think that we would have said that. The anger and betrayal in her eyes is, no, but it's kind of like that, oh, gets new text and screen in GPT and scroll. Whoa, so they get a really long text generated from generative AI. In the shadow of the geometric skyscrapers where no one can see us. And then they giggle. And then they say, our love, a sacred dance played to the tunes of an invisible orchestra. Oh, but it's kind of pretty though. Okay, but so what do we do now? This is important. We really need to pull this together. Should we each write a section? And then a quote from AI again, the artificial stars blink above us in a simulation of a night sky. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, but are we writing sections or just quickly changing everything because it seems like ChatGPT isn't really working? So here we can see that they don't trust the AI, it doesn't work. And others here, they say no. But which part are we doing? So they're scrolling up and down and they're trying to find a solution to how to pull this together, because they need to submit the text soon. They only have one day, right? So towards the end of the day, the framing of the activity as a school assignment is brought up and is discussed about whether or not the text needs to be rewritten. And questions arise regarding students' responsibility for the text in the school context. So you can see they need to pull it together. At the same time, they like certain things that the generative AI has created for them, but they don't know what is possible, what can we do? This doesn't align with our way of writing. So they are in this tension. But they also observe that AI is an insufficient writing partner. And they question what is happening here because it doesn't really do what they ask it to do. And it's quite interesting that the fact that AI tool is often associated with cheating in educational context, that also seems to play a role when students are completing their text. So they are sort of censoring themselves in a bit, or they are very hesitating when using AI. Because students, they tend to dismiss the AI contribution based on the idea that they cannot get the AI to understand how they think. So then they say that it doesn't work. But finally, the students, they have received instructions to write together with the AI, but they are unsure whether this is all right or not in this particular school context. So what kind of meaning do we draw from this study? Well, we see that it's a sort of a literacy desiring going on, or a querying of the current literacy that we have in education right now. When practices and responsibility in writing are reformulated and interactions are there, the co-authorship is changed, and students' agency and creativity is merged with computational creativity. And all this is met in these speculations about futures. So this is important. And the study also shows how literacy is in motion and renegotiated through students' practices. So we have this kind of algorithmic authorship emerging in these studies that we perhaps need to think about. And also we can see that the students, they are reflecting a lot about the responsibility and the origin of the written text. So we really need to be in these explorations and try to understand the development of creative AI collaboration in this area. And now from these results that will soon be published in a more readable format, I have some discussion points in relation to this presentation. Reading and writing practices in language education are closely linked to capacities that could be said to define what it means to be human. So something is happening in L1 education. You've been talking about how important it is to read literature and so on, and reading literature and creating stories. That is what humans do, and it's important in order to exist. But with this tool, there are existential issues coming, emerging, and we need perhaps to take them seriously. And I also think that it's difficult for us to shift perspective and begin to value non-human actors in creative writing. So this is a new thing to us. How can we do this? Even though non-human actors always have been there, technology and so on, but now it's so imposing. So that it might be more important than ever today. So how can we make this shift and sort of move beyond this dichotomy, human and machine, in reading and writing processes, and try to see how we actually are generating this together in an assemblage? And how do we also preserve the human dimension in these activities? I have no answer to this, but this is what we need to explore more, I think. And how can we design and create productive interactions? I think this is so important, because if we look at the diffraction process, the concept of diffraction, and how you use it in physics, you can actually see how an element is passing an obstacle, and if this obstacle is designed in a certain way, the element will be something particular, or depend on this obstacle for the transformation on the other side. And this is what is happening in this assemblage. And understanding literacy as a process of interactions rather than as a single human ability. I think this is important, that writing today cannot be seen as an individual project, never. And traditionally it has been so. So the desiring is about what will literacy be, or is literacy something that we invent every time that we move into a creative writing process? Oh, yes, I think this was a discussion questions. I can show you some of the images when the students, they really struggled to create the prompt images for the stories that they submitted for the end of the day. And this was difficult because the humans that generative AI create, they become very childish, as you can see. So they wanted a girl and a boy, a robot and a child. But as you can see, they didn't really manage. So they were so frustrated with this. So I will show you what they say. Because part of these assignments was that they had to do images, but they didn't have as much time to do the images as they had to do the text. So it was often one person in the group who engaged with creating the images. But there were very, very few images that were accepted by the students. Some of the students, they managed to make images without human beings, and then they they could accept them aesthetically. So here you can see the prompts in relation to the images. Draw a girl hugging a boy in a square. The boy's name is Devon and the girl's name is Miriel. And they were not, looks like children were their comments. Next prompt, draw a girl who has golden blonde hair. Her eyes are large and expressive with an unusual gray-blue color that shifts in light. With an Aryan appearance, tall, young, normal clothing style. Looks too young. Next example, prompt here. Draw a young man and a woman who saves the world in 2120. And they were not satisfied with that because they thought it was like some kind of action movie, like manga series. So they added to the prompt, who saves the world from the state? And then we had these examples, and of course it wasn't satisfying neither. So it's quite interesting. There are just some references. So it's quite interesting to see how they are aesthetically aware. And I think that through the use of generative AI in this way, we can also bring in aesthetic dimensions that are easily lost in L1 education and even in other subjects. I have more things to show regarding this study, but we also have questions on Book Club, but it seems like you are also, it's a long day, so we'll see. Here are some reference that I use. So here you have the book that we published, Who Holds the Future? Value Enactment Through Future Framing by Upper Secondary School Teachers. And this is in a book with many different chapters, both on AI literacy, speculative methods, and also on how we use data and simulations in education in various settings. And the book is called Framing Futures in Post-Digital Education, Critical Concepts for Data-Driven Practices. And here at the bottom, you have a book by Real Miller, and he has this title, Transforming the Future, Anticipation in the 21st Century. And this book has had a huge impact in the European Union, because if you go to the UNESCO website and look for future literacy, and there you will see that this book forms the foundation for the pedagogical tool of futures literacy. So there is a community, and UNESCO also encourages this, that try to spread futures literacy into education in various ways. Because if we do not speak about futures more, and also engage seriously with futures, somebody else will do it for us. So this is something that I would like to work with you. I would like to work with you about this issue and about futures, and hopefully we can do that tomorrow. You can ask me questions about futures methods if you are interested now. Otherwise, I will just go through that tomorrow and give you a roadmap tomorrow, and we can have some collaborative work around futures. And the idea is that you will write a postcard from the future tomorrow when we are finished, and you will say thank you to some important person here in the present for everything that has been done, so that we can have a better life in 20 years or so. So thank you. This was maybe far from your subject that you're working with in your disciplines right now, but this is what I'm doing research on. Thank you. So do you have any questions? Maybe you can go to book club. Yes, you have one question.
As per your presentation, there is one question I want to ask that do you think language and literature has predicted the rise of AI accurately?
That they translate? No. That they translate?
Do you think language and literature has predicted the rise of AI accurately?
Oh, if language and literature has done that. I mean, this is so interesting. I know that one of you is doing a study on literature, or several of you probably. And there are so many myths about AI in literature. And I have read actually I'm submitting now a text in French this spring, and there I have several studies on the myths in literature and popular media regarding AI. And it's almost always robots, always robots walking around and androids taking over. So it's also very dystopian, and very few scenarios where we see fruitful or productive collaborations. It's more about threats in the futures. So we have like Ishiguro, the Nobel Prize winner of the Literary Prize, in his Clara and the Sun, for example. You have this myth about the robot who has emotions and thinking and so on. And it's so clear, all the computer scientists that I'm speaking with, they are emphasizing again and again that this is technology. It cannot think. We are speaking about statistics and predictions and so on. It's mathematics, nothing else. However, these models can imitate and emotions, and can imitate also what creativity is. And the data that we feed these models with, they can definitely lure us into a very realistic impression. But I think that literature has always been extremely important for predicting the futures. So I have had this course on science fiction together with an astrophysicist. And it was so rewarding to have that course, because I took care of the literature. We read or works from authors like Philip K. Dick, but also Ursula Le Guin and another female as well as male science fiction authors. And he explained a little bit the technology that these science fiction stories drew on. And I talked about the literature, and maybe also the lack of literature in some of the science fiction stories that are so interesting. But I mean, time travels, they are experimenting with that. And we have a huge fund of literature about time travels, and also about alternate history. This is also a way to see and to look at how the world could have been different. Not that it will be different, but it could have been different. For example, if we wouldn't have invented, I don't know, the car, petrol, that we stayed with steam instead of electricity and so on. So this is a passionate field for research if you are in literature, but it's also tricky because there are a big field of world building studies where you theoretically look into how world building has been made in science fiction. And this is a kind of narratology drawing on Gérard Genette and also you have Mary Law Ryan, for example, who is she has engaged with changing the narratology theory to adapt it to a digital era. So I really encourage you to look into her work. So it's tricky because there are so many things that you can look at. You can look at the myths only. There are so many people doing that right now. So you must be careful. But I think it's interesting to see how different scholars try to find, for example, stories from India, from China, from different parts of the world that actually speaks about this artificial human being that very well can be a robot of today. So that is one thing, yeah. Mm. Yeah.
If language defines our humanity, how do you think that non-human things, non-human agents like AI or even classroom environment can expand or alter this definition of humanity?
Yes, I mean, this is a core question, and of course, I will not be able to give a straightforward answer, but I really encourage all of us to discuss this, because what is happening? What kind of linguistic being will I be in 10 years? I mean, I've tried to figure myself in 10 years, because I see already now, I mean, I'm working quite intensely between Swedish, English, and French. And I need to do things fast. We are all trapped in this efficiency economy and this logic of being productive all the time and produce. So then if you have an AI who can help you to do that, it's excellent. And what you can see in Sweden, to take one example, the teachers, they are quite often now working with generative AI to do their lesson planning, for example. And why not? The problem is when they start to grade their students or giving feedback to generative AI. Because we must ask ourselves, how ethical is that? So most schools nowadays, they have policies regarding that. So they say that administratively, in planning work and so on, go ahead, you can use generative AI, but you cannot use them for evaluation and grading. However, if we go towards that, and we know that the students, they also use generative AI to produce their text, where will we go? We will have students using generative AI for producing their texts and their exams, and we will have teachers using generative AI to evaluate those texts. So where is the human in that? We will have like machines speaking to each other, and the human is just there. So it is a very relevant question. Where do we go, and where do we strike the balance? So the glimpses that you got from this study today, I mean, I must emphasize this. It's very explorative, but the data, they are quite unique. No one has this data yet, so we are very early to actually observe the process, what is happening with the students when they engage with AI practices. And I mean, they are also asking this question to themselves. Can we, dare I, and how should I talk to this machine? How should I prompt? Because the prompting is sort of it's the interface between the machine and us. So I'm very divided and hesitant regarding how to do this. But that's why I believe that we really need to look into different practices. What is happening when we bring in generative AI? And instead of banning the tools, trying to explore, okay, we use it now openly. We'll see what happens and what you can do with it. For example, I have colleagues, they have worked with people who are learning Swedish. I mean, we have a lot of immigrants in Sweden, so if generative AI can be helpful in learning languages. So we have that. And I mean, generative AI also developed really fast regarding assessment, especially in English. So essay assessment you can do, I mean, in quite a good way through AI. So you do not need to sit there with your 50 copies late in night if you have an AI to do it. And I don't know how it is in India, but in Sweden, there is an enormous lack of teachers for the futures. Too many kids and no teachers. So what do? We need to develop tools for this. But that's for sure, the status as a human being is changing. So this is extremely existential, and that is why it's so important to bring in students into futures thinking, so that they actually can speak about their fears, but also about their very imaginative solutions in the futures, because we also have extremely innovative and creative solutions in these texts that we have collected during the years. Mm. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yes, thank you. I mean, I don't want to force things, because I feel that you are, yes, oh yes, go ahead.
I do understand that AI is the future and it holds so many possibilities.
Yes.
But as of now, it does have its limitations. And like, for instance, I saw in your presentation that how a student was getting frustrated with ChatGPT because the student could not make the ChatGPT understand what they want.
Exactly.
Right? So my question to you is it right to partially introduce AI in the lives of students? And if we do so, shouldn't there be guidelines or some sort of do's and don'ts for them?
It's a very good question. So I've been looking now, there are so many studies or reviews of AI guidelines that have been made all over the world, specifically in higher education. And we can see that these guidelines, they are not very helpful regarding what is done in practice. The guidelines, they are speaking about how you ethically should introduce these tools. And I can say that the most prominent universities in the world, they encourage the use of AI because they see that we need to teach our students this for the future. But there are very few guidelines that are hands-on, do like this or like that. There are universities who develop staff courses, so you can, in a workshop form, so that you can develop your own course and so on. But these responsible AI uses, this is unknown terrain. We can see that the guidelines, they will not tell you anything about it. So that is why the Nordic, there is a Nordic Council. So they have just published a call for research funding. So now I am working on a research application. So this is what I have been doing when I'm not here. I'm in my room and I work on a research application with 4 other countries. I work with Norway, Denmark, Finland, and Estland on this call. about responsible AI use in the Nordic countries? Because the question that you asked, there is no answer. There is no research about how we should do this. So we need to dive into it. And the application that, that I write will focus on responsible AI use by using the Bildung concept and how we can operationalize concepts such as creativity, criticality, communication, culture, and care into AI practices. Because we can see that the students in these examples, I mean, they use their ethical and moral compass somehow, because they think, is it correct? Can I do this? But we need to do that more, and not only in educational settings. So hopefully, if I manage with this project, the idea is to produce a framework, a blueprint, and something that you can actually apply in practice with AI tools. So that all these dimensions that we want to have in our education actually are there with the students. But this is the same in the workplace. It's not only in education. Even in the workplace, there is so much learning going on.
When we create questions, like when we create questions, the MCQs and stuff, ChatGPT creates ambiguous questions.
Yes, and then you must ask yourself, did I answer it right? And can I be more precise? And also know what are the limitations of AI? So this is also why we need to have AI literacy embedded in social sciences and the humanities now. This is my conviction. And how we do that, I couldn't say, but what we can see is that AI literacy frameworks have been published in recent years, and they are focusing both on the technology itself, but also on more on the limitations and opportunities with AI. So I cannot say exactly how you should do, but learning how to prompt is also one thing. And I think that we perhaps need prompt experts, those who are really interested and enthusiastic for these issues in school, circulating and working with different teachers in different groups. So we need to collaborate differently among teachers. Yes. Well, thank you. I don't think we should push it further tonight, right? I don't know. Will I be banned? We work more tomorrow.
Thank you, Professor Lindberg, for such an informative session on the use of AI in education. Even my research is focusing on the use of electronic literature in educational pedagogy in the Indian context, especially. So, with this, we conclude day 4 of the Gyan course on culturally empowering, through language and literature. I thank Professor Anisul Rahman and Professor Ilva Lindberg for their enriching contributions today. As a reminder, the test link will be posted on the WhatsApp group shortly, and you can attempt the test anytime before midnight. The test will be graded and the grades will be reflected on the certificate. Thank you all for your active participation. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for the valedictory and the last lectures of the Gyan course. Thank you. 12 noon. The lectures will start at 12 noon, followed by the valedictory at 4:30 p.m.